Hello, Concord Junior High. This is your math teacher, Mr. Rock, with another video. In this video, you will learn how to solve several types of two-step equations. I encourage you to take notes as you watch the video. Write down the problems that are worked out in the video onto paper, so that you have some written examples that show you how to do these problems. Let's get started. Here's our first example. The directions say to solve for the value of x. Negative 2/3 x plus 2.8 equals negative 8.2. Okay, the first step to solving this equation is to do the opposite of adding 2.8, which is to subtract 2.8 from each side of the equation. And the result is negative 2/3 x. This much right here equals 0. Equals negative 10. Negative 8.2 and a negative 2.8 together make a negative 10. Okay, what we have left is we have negative 2.3 times x. And the opposite of multiplying negative 2.3 is to divide by negative 2.3. But when you divide by negative 2.3, what you really do is just multiply by the reciprocal. So over here, I'm going to put this in parentheses, and I'm going to multiply both sides by 3 over negative 2 times 3 over negative 2. Now what you get on the left-hand side is you get negative 2/3 times negative 3 over 2. When you multiply these two fractions, you get negative 6 over negative 6, which equals just 1. So all you have left on the left-hand side is 1 times x, or just x. On this side, change negative 10 into negative 10 over 1, and then just multiply going across the top, and then multiply going across the bottom. So you get negative 10 times 3, which is negative 30. 1 times negative 2, which is negative 2. Negative 30 divided by negative 2 is positive 15. So we solved for x. X is equal to, well, just 15. Okay, here is our next example. The directions are the same. Solve for x. And the equation is 3 times the quantity 2x minus 5 equals 2x plus 5. So what this equation means is I have 3 times 2x minus 5 equals 2x plus 5. And what we have to do here is we have to use the distributive property. The distributive, distributive, the distributive property. And what that means is every number in here, the 2 and the 5, they get multiplied by the 3. So this is what it looks like. 3 times 2 is 6. And 3 times 5 is 15 equals 2x plus 5. Now there are lots of different ways that we can go about to solve this equation. Probably most of you are going to add 15 to both sides. And you're going to get 6x here. This much is 0 equals 2x plus 20. And you might be stuck at this point because you have an x on this side and an x over here. Well, the next step is just to subtract 2x from both sides. 2x from 6x equals 4x equals 20. This much here is 0. Divide both sides by 4. And you get x equals 5. That is the solution. And what that means is, x equals 5, what that means is if I put a 5 into here and a 5 into here, both sides will be equal. Let's go ahead and do that so you can see what it looks like. This is called checking your work. So let's see, I have 3 times 2 times 5 minus 5 equals 2 times 5 plus 5. Well, let's work on the left-hand side first. I have 3, and this much right here. 2 times 5 is 10. So I have 10 minus 5. 10 minus 5 is 5, and 3 times 5 is 15. On the right-hand side, using order of operations, 2 times 5 is 10. So 10 plus 5. 10 plus 5 is 15. So look at this. When I put 5 in for x, both sides are equal to the same number, 15. The only number that will do this for the equation is 5. So that's what we mean when we say that 5 is the solution. It's the only number that you can put into the equation that will make the equation an equation. Any other number won't work. Here's our next example. If x equals 3 minus 9x, then x has the value. Well, what they're asking us to do here is just to solve the equation. So I have x equals 3 minus 9x. Let me ask you a question. How many x's are right here? I heard you say the right answer. It's 1. So instead of just having an x there, we can write down 1x. All right, so how are we going to solve this equation? Well, this is what I suggest. I suggest we do the opposite of subtracting 9x. The opposite of subtracting 9x is to add 9x to both sides. And when that happens, you get 1x plus 9x. That equals 10x. Equals, bring down the 3. This much is equal to 0. The opposite of multiplying by 10 is to divide by 10. So we're going to divide both sides by 10. 10 divided by 10 equals 1. 1 times x is x. And x is equal to 3 tenths. And that's your solution. Okay, here's our next example. The directions say solve and check your solution. We have 3m minus 1 plus 4m equals 5. This problem is a little bit different than the other ones that we've done so far because you have some like terms on the same side of the equation. When this happens, I like to draw a line that goes down the page through the equal sign. And what I see is I see that I have 3m and I have 4m. And you see how they are on the same side of the line. That means I have to combine like terms. Don't use opposites. Okay, so I'm going to write this down. Okay, combine like terms. That is your first step. So what am I going to get? I'm going to get 3m plus 4m. That's 7m minus 1 equals 5. The opposite of subtracting 1 is to add 1. Now, this is where I use opposites. Do you see how the 1 and the 5 are on opposite sides of the line? Well, I need to use opposite operations to combine them. So I get 7m. This much is 0. 5 plus 1 is 6. The opposite of multiplying by 7 is to divide by 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 1 times m is m. M equals 6/7. And that's the solution. So remember, for this problem, when you have terms that are on the same side of the equation, that's when you combine like terms. Okay, you solve when you have terms on opposite sides of the equation. Okay, here is a word problem, and we all love word problems. Yay for word problems. Let's read it. After driving 175 miles in the plains, a car travels up a hill at 28 miles per hour. If the total distance covered in the plains and the hills was 273 miles, how much time was taken by the journey in the hills? Okay, well, the first thing that sticks out to me is that the total journey was 273 miles. And 175 miles was in the plains. So if I subtract 273 and 175, I will get the number of miles that were driven in the hills. So I have to be careful when I subtract here. I have to do some borrowing. I think I'm doing this right. 98. Okay, so 175 miles were driven in the plains and 98 miles were driven in the hills. And I can even make a picture of that if I want. Here are the plains. Here are the hills. Okay, 175 miles were driven here. 98 miles were driven here. The total distance is 273. Now, that's not the question. That's not the answer to the question. I need that information to get the answer to the question. The question is, how long were we driving in the hills? Well, I drove a total of 98 miles in the hills, and I'm driving 28 miles per hour. So in order to get the number of hours that I'm driving in the hills, I'm going to have to do some dividing. So I'm going to have to take 98 and divide by 28. And then I will get the amount of time driven in the hills. All right, so I have to do some dividing. I think 28 goes into 98 3 times. 28 times 3 is 84. 98 minus 84 is 14. Add a 0, bring it down. How many times does 28 go into 140? Let's see, I'm going to say 4 times. And how much is 28 times 4? That's 112. Maybe it goes in there 5 times. What's 28 times 5? It goes in there 5 times. All right, so let's erase the 4. Let's change that to a 5. Minus 140. And I have the answer. They spent 3.5 hours driving in the hills. Oh, good. A problem just with numbers. Solve the equation. 14.4 equals negative 2.7x minus 1.8. So let's see. I have let's just write down the problem. 14.4 equals negative 2.7x minus 1.8. Well, we're going to do the opposite of subtracting 1.8, which is to add 1.8 to both sides. And let's see, what do we get? We get 1, 2, 6. I get 16.2 equals negative 2.7x. The opposite of multiplying by negative 2.7 is to divide by negative 2.7. And let's see, this much over here, this much equals 1. 1 times x is x. Over here, I know my answer is going to be negative. I have to do some dividing. Okay. All right, so I have 16.2 divided by 2.7. Move the decimal point 1 place to the right. How many times does 27 go into 162? I'm going to try 5. What is 27 times 5? 135. I think that's it. So 5. I bet it goes in there 6 times. Let's try 27 times 6. All right. I'm just mumbling now. It's 162. The answer is 6. X equals negative 6, remember. Whew. Solve the two-step equation for the unknown variable. 6y plus 1 equals 43. This is going to be a really fast problem because there are no fractions and there are no decimals. The opposite of adding 1 is to subtract 1. I get 6y. This much is 0 equals 42. Divide both sides by 6. Y equals 7. That's the solution. Should we check it? 6 times 7 plus 1, that equals 43. Check. This is another quick problem. I have 20s minus 16 equals 204. Add 16 to both sides. We get 20. This much is equal to 0. Equals 220. Divide both sides by 20. And we get equals 11. By the way, the noise is for S. Oh my goodness, another easy one. Thank you so much. We have solved the equation. 102 equals 8x plus 6. The opposite of adding 6 is to subtract 6. 102 minus 6 is 96. Equals 8x. Divide both sides by 8. X equals 12. I know that I make solving these equations look easy, but I've had a lot of practice and I know what to do. That's why it looks so easy. It may not be that easy for you, and that's okay. After some practice, it will be. Yay! Another equation to solve. This time it has fractions. So let's see here. We have 3/5 x plus 5 over 2 equals 2 over 3. And I'm going to show you a technique to get rid of the fractions. So the problem only has whole numbers. And that trick is we want to multiply by the common denominator. Now this is a new technique. Multiply by the common denominator. So what is the common denominator? Look at the denominators. The denominators are 5, 2, and 3. What is the common denominator of 5, 2, and 3? That's right. I heard you say 30. Good job. So the common denominator of 5, 2, and 3 equals 30. So I'm going to multiply every term by 30. So here we go. I'm going to have 30 times 3 over 5x plus 30 times 5 over 2 equals 30 times 2 over 3. It looks a lot more complicated, doesn't it? Because we're adding more numbers to the problem. But I think you're going to be happy with what happens next. Right here, what is 30 divided by 5? 30 divided by 5 is 6. And then we're going to multiply 6 times 3, and we're going to get 18x. See, I bet you're happy with that, aren't you? Because the fraction is now gone. Plus, over here, next, what is 30 divided by 2? 30 divided by 2 is 15. So this much right here equals 15. Now we have to figure out what is 15 times 5. 15 times 5 is 75. Look at that. Another fraction gone. Next, what is 30 divided by 3? 30 divided by 3 is 10. 10 times 2 is 20. So, look at the results. We multiply everything by a common denominator. The common denominator is 5, 2, and 3 is 30. So I multiply every term by 30. I do some dividing first, then some multiplying. Some dividing, then multiplying. Some dividing, then multiplying. And the result is I get an equation with no fractions. Pretty nice. So we can continue to solve. Minus 75. We get 18x. This much is 0. Equals negative 55. Divide both sides by 18. And I get x equals negative 55 over 18. And that's your final answer. That answer is reduced. Some kids ask me, they say, Mr. Rock, do I have to reduce this? This answer is already reduced. Whew, good work. Okay, this problem is the same as the last one. We need to figure out a common denominator. Okay, we need to figure out a common denominator for 10, 2, and 3. And I think that's going to be 30 again. Okay, so we're going to take this equation and we're going to multiply every term by 30. So this is going to be 30 times 9 divided by 10x minus 30 times 1 divided by 2 equals 30 times 2 divided by 3. So remember, we want to divide first. 30 divided by 10 is 3. And then we want to multiply. 3 times 9 is 27. Divide first. 30 divided by 2 is 15. 15 times 1 is 15. Divide first. 30 divided by 3 is 10. 10 times 2 is 20. Look at that. Multiply every term by the common denominator. Makes things look a lot easier to solve because the fractions go away and all you have left are whole numbers. Okay, so the opposite of subtracting 15 is to add 15. So we get 27x. This much here is equal to 0. Equals 35. Divide both sides by 27. And you get x equals 35 over 27. That's it. All right. One more example. We have x over 4 plus 3 equals 2x plus 5. The fraction is 4. That means our common denominator is 4. So I'm going to multiply every term by 4. 4 times x over 4 plus 4 times 3 equals 4 times 2x plus 4 times 5. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1 times x is x. Plus 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 2x is 8x. 4 times 5 is 20. Let's see. We can go ahead and subtract 12 from both sides. So we get x, this much equals 0, equals 8x plus 8. And then what to do here? I know a lot of you are going to want to subtract 1x from both sides. But if you do that, then we're going to have 0 on one side of the equation. So I recommend that you don't do that. Try to stop getting a 0 on one side of the equation, at least for now. So instead of subtracting 1x here, what I would do is I would subtract 8x here. So this is what it looks like. Minus 8x from both sides. 1x minus 8x is negative 7x equals, this much is 0, 8. Divide both sides by negative 7. And I have my answer. X equals negative 8/7. And that's your solution. Okay. I hope that you learned a variety of techniques for solving equations. 2 or 3-step equations. We saw examples of how to solve them. Remember some of the tricks. One trick is multiplying every part of the equation by the common denominator to eliminate fractions. That's a big trick. And remember this other trick, the distributive property, where every number inside the parentheses gets multiplied by the number outside the parentheses. And also remember, when you have terms on the same side of the equation, you combine those like terms. You only use opposites when you have terms on opposite sides of the equation. I hope this video helps. You can go back and watch parts of this video as many times as you need. Good luck with your assignment. Bye.